shit the House Rabbit Society gets dead wrong. Number one, rabbits have to have hay and should be given fresh vegetables. No, rabbits actually don't need hay as long as they are given a properly balanced pellet. Hay oftentimes just filler. A lot of times it's not even good hay. I mean, do you guys seriously know how to pick proper hay? And god damn, the amount that you people are spending in the store. I mean, okay, let's put it this way. I have 2 bales of hay behind me. Do you know which is the good bale and which is the shitty bale? This is the better bale. See that? Nice color? That's the shitty bale. It's ridiculously twiggy and very dry. It's probably first cut. But do you know the difference between first cut and third cut and second cut? And again, rabbits don't need it. Rabbits have to have fresh fruit and vegetables. Not actually true. If anything, this is actually extremely dangerous. We have seen, that was something that we noticed on the meat rabbit groups on Facebook in particular, is that people that happen to be on both the, meat rabbit groups and on some of these pet groups, what we see consistently is the pet groups are constantly having GI stasis issues and bloat issues and all kinds of problems. And what we're noticing that they're doing is they're going on the internet and saying, oh, they can have strawberries and bananas and fresh grass and all these things and spinach and cabbage. And then they give it to their rabbit as soon as they get it home without doing transition, without doing, proper anything. All of those things I just listed, technically, yes, they can have them in extremely small dosage as treats. It should not be a regular part of their diet because those things are very gassy and they will bloat and they will die. Now you're going to ask, but Mary, what is a good quality pellet? Well, I have some bags here. ADM, Pen Pals. This one is my favorite. Mana Pro Select Series Grow Feed. This is my 3rd place one. It's still decent, although it depends on what part of the country you're in. This is the 18%. You're going to want to verify if you've had recalls or not, because depending on which factory it came from, some have had issues last year. So I got lucky, my area has not had many problems. What we're currently feeding is Kalmbach because our feed store is no longer carrying ADM. This is also pretty decent. This is also a good quality feed. I managed to find one of the Pen Pals bag that still has the feed tag on it. I'm going to walk through these real quick. This is the ADM Pen Pals feed, 18%. This was my personal favorite. We had 18% protein, which was good for nursing does, pregnant does, and grow outs. I switched to 16% for bucks and for basic maintenance. This was dehydrated alfalfa meal, and then millings, and then goes down from there. But alfalfa is going to be number 1. Okay, this is the Mana Pro Grow Series. Again, 18%. This is for my does and grow outs. That's the breakdown. Again, we start with alfalfa meal because it's mainly alfalfa is what's in most of this, and then what the breakdown is. And then the Kalmbach, this is also an 18%. This was the best in show, 18%, and that's the breakdown. And again, alfalfa meal, and then we go down from there. Now, my preference is not to have soybeans so high up in the ingredients, but that's what I have to feed right now because that's what's available. I do switch between grow sometimes, but it's been harder to get this too because, I don't know, Tractor Supply is having trouble getting it. And the Pen Pals has been my favorite. What you're going to notice for the feed store feeds is they got those extra tags on them. Then to show you grade 1 of what I refer to as really shitty feed, and this is only here because the dude that brought back to my 2 does was feeding Country Roads Rabbit Pellet from Rural King, even though I believe I tell everyone not to get this, because this has actually killed some of my rabbits before because they screwed around with what they put in it. Country Roads, which I fed for a little bit because we were between being able to get feed at our regular feed store. Now, you saw the other stuff, first ingredient alfalfa. This stuff, first ingredient wheat millings. And there is no 18% version of this. That's all that they make is the 16. It's not good. Alfalfa second, and then there's corn in here. Lots of corn. They added corn to the rabbit feed. not feed your rabbits seeds and corn. Now, sunflower is a different story. We'll get into that later. But typical like bird seed and all that shit that you see in like the Katy feeds with all the extra colors and bullshit that you get at the pet store, horrible for them. Rabbits don't digest corn. It is just one of those grains that causes inflammation in their guts. It is really, really bad for them. I have literally had that kill one of my does at one point because we went to the country roads for a week because that's all we could get. And that was with transition and with the leftover food. And she bloated and she died within like 5 days. So we don't touch this shit anymore. We just don't. And like I said, the reasoning for that is they changed the recipe up. There's corn in it. Do not feed your rabbits corn. Do not feed your rabbits seeds. I don't care if it says that you can. I don't care if it's in the pet store bag. That pet store food is horrendous. It will kill them. Okay, I just came in from the field, obviously. I know we got other farm moms out there who know what this is. We go out with our rubber boots and our pajamas on in the morning because we got to get the animals done before we eat or pee or shower. Anyway, just to briefly go over hay, and I'm going to do a longer series on this later. If you'd actually listened to anything I said in that last group of videos, they don't need it. I didn't say that they can't have it, which a lot of you seem to be misunderstanding. And vegetables, I didn't say they can't. In fact, I even said in the video, the list of things that I listed, rabbits can technically have most of them. The trick is you have to introduce it correctly. So the next set of videos we're going to be doing is differences between types of hay, when you give types of hay, proper storage for types of hay, when you give vegetables, what vegetables are safe, when you give fruits, which fruits are safe, which plants you can use for certain medicinal conditions that actually are better than some medications or you can use before you use Number one, people don't know how to pick hay for the most part, which is what we're going to explain here. Pet store hay is not very good for the most part because it's cheap and sometimes you get really, really good stuff, but it's incorrect for your species and what you're giving them. Now let's go over cuts real quick. First cut hay is your hardest stuff. You saw that stuff in the video. That was a first cut hay. It tends to be very stemmy, really thick, because that's just the immediate first grow up of the summer. Second cut, a little more nutritious, a little bit softer. That's particularly horse hay like that because they got some stemminess for the extra fiber, but then they also got some other stuff for nutrition. Third cut, super, super soft. Lots of stuff. I like it because there tends to be lots of different growth, weeds, more leafy parts. Sometimes you get flowers like clover. Okay, part two. When do I give hay? I give hay when I have moms who are nesting, and I particularly, I use some straw. I give them first for the bottom. Straw is not hay. And then I'll give them some third cut because it's soft, second or third cut because it's softer for them to actually build their nest into. And usually also they get that third cut because it's more nutritious. And when we're getting ready to have does that are going to kindle, I want to make sure that they're getting a little bit extra. They sometimes need the extra fiber right around then for, again, medicinal purposes. It helps prevent bloat. Because there's a lot going on when they're about ready to have babies. Also because I tend to pick hays that have alfalfa and a clover mix integrated in them. Clover helps with milk production. Red clover helps boost it. Alfalfa helps with, alfalfa is technically a legume, it's not hay, but alfalfa has extra nutritious, so when they're getting ready to have those babies and they're working hard, they need it. Okay, so we covered when the does, pregnant and nursing does, get hay and what type of hay. Next, we're going to go with the bucks. Bucks, non-nursing does, grow outs past the age of 5 months. Basically, rabbits that aren't currently producing litters or pregnant or have a high energy need or medical need, typically just get pellets. And occasionally we get some snackies, but again, I'll cover what fruit and what snackies they get. But when they do get stuff, it's typically wintertime. When it's very cold out, I like to make sure that they have a little extra hay and stuff in order to burrow in and play in and to keep them occupied. And occasionally during the summer, it's more of a toy though. So the type of hay that they will get is they'll get straw, which again, not hay, and we'll explain what that is in a minute, or they'll get like first cut. And it's more of a toy and just something to keep them busy during the day so they got something to do. Okay, and then we're going to cover when do the kits get hay and what other times is hay appropriate. So, and again, I'm going to be going into more detail about types of hay and listing out which ones because hay is a very broad terminology. So, kits will get hay right around that if mom's getting it while she's nursing, it's going to be the third cut, and it'll be an alfalfa clover orchard grass mix, because that's typically what I like to get. All right, mom will get that almost the entire time that she is doing nursing, because she's going to be rebuilding her nest and gives her something to nibble on, and it helps with weaning the kits. So they will have access to it most of the time. During the weaning process, and mom will start to kick the kits off and wean them at 3 weeks. And so between 3 and 8 weeks, they will have access to what mom gets. And that also has pretty much, I think I've had weaning internites once in 5 years. Kits will continue to have access to hay, although I may move it from third cut down to second cut, depending on how they're growing out or what they need, until they're in the grow out pen. When they move into the grow out pen, again, we limit the amount. We want them mostly on their pellets. That's their primary diet. They will have access to toys at that point. They do have stuff to play with. They have free feed on the pellets until they're about 4 months old, give or take. Depends on their grow out rate. Sometimes we'll pull a little bit sooner, depending on how they're doing. And then they will, then they do get stuff to munch on. So for a while, yeah, they will have access, but it's controlled which one they get. It's going to be controlled if they're getting a high calorie hay or a low calorie hay, one that's more fiber, one that's more nutritious. So it really does depend on the rabbits and what you're doing, but that's just that's how we raise them. And again, to stress time of year, as I mentioned at the beginning, most of the time when they're getting hay, it's colder months and when it's medicinally necessary. So in the summer, we may not do any hay at all for the grow outs. We may just go ahead and do whatever mom's getting for nest building, let them kind of nibble on that, and when we move them into the grow out pen, it's going to be basically just some for bedding, because that's where they're comfortable. And then they typically don't get a lot of hay. I will occasionally stuff in first and second cut into some of the tubes. So again, they have something to keep them occupied and play with, so they don't end up fighting or being stupid with each other, because they're kits and they get bored. But for the most part, it's not really necessary. If they're in single cages and they're out already, I got a couple back there that they only get it if I know the weather's going to be horrible or it's going to be chilly. Otherwise, they're basically on pellets and water. All right, I'm going to go pause the series for right now, as I covered most of the very generalized basics. I'm going to come back later and we're going to discuss alfalfa legumes. We're going to discuss mixes of hay, because I've mentioned that my third cut, what I prefer to have in the mix, but there's different ones. There's straight Timothy, there's Timothy alfalfa mix, there's orchard grass Timothy alfalfa mix, there's orchard grass clover mix, there's orchard grass clover alfalfa mix, which is my preference. Then there's straw, which is not hay. It's typically the byproduct of growing wheat. Typically, not always. There's different types of straw. And then we have which cut it is, which we kind of went over as far as leafy and nutrition requirements. And then there's also when hay is completely dangerous, and you have to be very careful where you're getting it, because it has actually passed the RHVD2 onto several rabbit trees out west that have gotten it shipped in, and unfortunately that's where it came from, it was on the hay. So you need to discuss everything about this.